We got 15 likes already.
One, two.
That's
No,
good.
it's a different stream. It's not that one.
Oh, that's the pinned tweet. Sorry, my bad. I
Yep.
was like, wow, that's
I'll pin this
impressive.
tweet right now. So, yeah, okay. I see some retweets already happening. Let me pin the tweet. Pin the profile. Yep. Okay, let's pin now. Okay, let me retweet it as well. And we're good to go almost.
So Arthur, you notice there's I think the DeFi poster is maybe backwards, so maybe just make sure the camera's not on it.
Oh, it's fine. I mean, I'll we're in Inception in VR. Everything is possible.
Okay.
It's
All right,
impossible for me to not.
All right, no worries. It's kind of low key because it's blue on blue, so it's all good.
Yeah. Okay, so I think.
Testing.
Hi, Gandhi.
Hey, Gindi, you made it. Good job, buddy.
Hey, Gindi. Hello.
I ran into Gindi at his gallery the other night. I ran the whole way across to see who it was, and he was AFK.
Soon teleporters. All right, so everybody ready?
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Okay, coolio. So I'm starting this stream. I'm opening the video in 3, 2, 1, go.
All right. Welcome, everyone, to the DeFi meetup / Octagon table discussion here today in Somnium Web. On my right, I have Chris Bell, the amazing Chris Bell. He is a VR nerd and NFT collector and virtual real estate mogul. On my left, just joining us from the sunny West Coast, is Jonas, rocking the TV, and he is a DeFi startup guy, which I have no idea what that actually means, so hopefully he can tell us.
Sure thing.
Thank you.
So we don't have slides today, so I guess we're just going to do some storytelling about what is DeFi. What are some of the areas that you should think about to be involved in it, I guess. Sasha, how do you want to handle it? Do you want to ask us questions, or do you want Chris and I to both talk a little bit and take it from there? What would you like to do?
Yeah, my name is Sasha, and I'm going to be moderating today. So we'll start with you, Chris. Just a quick elevator pitch as to who you are, what your involvement with DeFi, like where did you come from, and maybe a couple minutes, and then we'll jump back to Chris, and then we'll start our show.
Sure. Thank you for having me. It was about 2017 when I found Bitcoin and read some books and quickly found Ethereum. And after I found Ethereum, I found out that you could make ERC20 tokens and, of course, ERC 721. So it was a little bit of a rabbit hole down into Ethereum. And when I got into Ethereum, I had first got into Decentraland because they were promoting that they were a virtual reality company, and I wanted to get involved in that. But from there, I found Somnium Space because DCL came out with news that they weren't going to be doing VR for a few years. So I eventually reached out, found Somnium Space. Arthur reached out to me right away. We spoke. He was a visionary, and I couldn't wait to get involved in Somnium. So I've been in and around Somnium ever since.
Awesome. Jonas, what about you?
Cool. Well, guys, this is awesome. Thank you very much for inviting me into the metaverse here to talk about DeFi. I've been in Somnium a couple of times, but I'm definitely a noob here. I do have my Oculus ready to go, so next time we can do this in the world there, that would be awesome. So I'm Jonas. I am currently, I founded a DeFi project called Staker DAO. We're about a year old. And we do some really interesting things in the DeFi space, which I'll save for later as we kind of talk through what is DeFi and what are some of the basic concepts. I'll touch a little bit on how Staker DAO plays with those things. But in general, I'm a startup guy, like you said, Sasha. I found crypto in 2016. I was CEO of a company that was doing some AI text analysis technology prior to that for a couple of years, and it got acquired. And so I started reading white papers. The first crypto project I learned about was not Ethereum, it was actually Tezos. And so I got pretty involved in the Tezos ecosystem early on, but then started learning about all these other great chains and networks, and of course Ethereum as well. More recently, we launched StakerDAO a little over a year ago, raised some money from venture capital, and now are building some really cool assets in our project. I also give a shout out to the NFT space, and in particular Flamingo DAO, which I'm a member of, which is this really cool group of investors who are focused on kind of the cutting edge of NFT art and land and collectibles and things like that. So at the end of my talk here today, we can talk a little bit about how NFTs and DeFi are kind of starting to get related to each other.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much, both of you, for coming. The big question I'm sure everyone on the stream is asking themselves right now is, what's in it for me? How can DeFi and all this good crypto stuff help somebody who's really, they have heard of Bitcoin, maybe Ethereum, maybe VR, but they haven't really got any of it yet. So maybe, Chris, you could talk a bit about what you see as the main reason for DeFi for a person just coming in.
I think the key word is participating, not making money and all of that. That comes kind of secondary. You can be a tourist inside Somnium space that roams for free, or you can be a citizen that buys a lot of things. And then after participating for a while, you figure out how to make money doing what you like. So I was eager to rent land, VR land, to people on the blockchain, which is in itself a low-key way of DeFi. It's decentralized finance. Wilson does the same thing. He accepts cubes for building in VR for other people. So we're making financial transactions on Ethereum, which is a smaller form of DeFi. It's not a complete smart contract yet. But a good question to ask an early DeFi project is something like, how centralized are you right now, and how do you plan to become more decentralized over time? Some people simply like using decentralized protocols like Uniswap over centralized companies like Coinbase and Binance. But the cool thing is you're not forced to own Uni tokens or BNB tokens to participate in DeFi. You're simply participating by using the smart contract instead of a website's database or calling their company personnel. There are additional tools for us to use. So you can take a person that's never used a bank before, open up a new Ethereum wallet, earn some tokens by helping people on Discord and Twitter, all to exchange those tokens on Uniswap for several other tokens. And this person has participated in DeFi without investing any money yet. And the analogy would be something like using Amazon as a customer, but not owning the stock. So I hope that's a simple way. I know that Jonas is going to explain a more technical version of DeFi, but it's in simple terms, that's how I think of it.
That's really awesome. And Jonas, could you map out a quick, short little strategy like what Chris did on how somebody without, we're in COVID times here. Some people don't have a lot of extra cash. How can they still get in and start participating?
Yeah, sure. So I think that Chris raised a great point, which is that you don't have to do a lot in order to get started in crypto and to get started in DeFi. In fact, Chris mentioned this service called Uniswap, and let's just touch on that really quickly as a basic building block for DeFi. Traditionally, pre-2018, pre-2017, the only way to trade a token for another token was through basically a centralized exchange, and that meant there was some corporation. Starting with Mt. Gox, as many people know in the distant past, was a very interesting issue for Bitcoin. But fast forward to kind of today, you have big centralized exchanges like Coinbase and like Binance, for example. And the only way you can trade tokens is to use them. But then we have a new set of technology emerging on Ethereum, that allows people to trade tokens in a decentralized way, meaning you don't need a big corporation in charge of it. It all happens on chain, and it's all controlled by the users. And so now you have an option. You can either trust the centralized exchange, or you can do it in a trustless way. And that's what kind of these DEXs or decentralized exchanges are about. Uniswap is the biggest. SushiSwap is right behind it. And it's a great building block for understanding DeFi. Now, once you've kind of figured out what the exchange model looks like, then you can start looking at more exotic capabilities like borrowing and lending. Part of the whole DeFi model is to recreate what happens in the traditional, the centralized finance world, but do it in a decentralized way. So exchanges is the first place to start. Behind that is borrowing and lending. If I have, $1,000 worth of Ethereum, maybe I want to put it to productive use. I want to be able to put it into a lending contract, and I want someone else to be able to borrow it from me with collateral that they have. And then I want to earn an interest rate on lending that out to people. So that's kind of like the next level of DeFi. It goes a lot further than that, but for someone just getting started, those are a couple good steps to think about. Using a DEX and then using kind of a lending platform. So I'll stop there and see what you think.
Fantastic. So even to bring it more simple than that, in order to start, I need a wallet. So, we use MetaMask here. Can you guys, either one of you, see a reason not to use MetaMask to start and get a person in? It runs on a browser, and then you can start being able to interact with these platforms.
Jonas, you can take that first.
Sure. I think that MetaMask, which is a browser plugin for your browser, is pretty much a standard tool for people to get started with, for being able to interact with the Ethereum blockchain and these different applications. There's security is central, right, in this space. And one of the main differences when you go from trusting a centralized institution to being decentralized is you're responsible for the security of your own assets. MetaMask is a tool that makes you be responsible. You have to store your passwords, and you have to store the keys that are given to you for your MetaMask in a secure way. But once you begin those best practices, it's a very reasonable place to move forward. There's many levels of depth for security, and as you get into DeFi, you'll learn about those. But MetaMask is a great place to start. And the easiest way to get funds into MetaMask is either by onboarding through a centralized account like Coinbase or many others around the world. As Sasha mentioned, join a community and do a little work in that community and start to earn some tokens that way. Looks like we might have lost Sasha from our roundtable.
Yeah. I agree with you. I think that MetaMask is definitely a secure enough way for a beginner to get started. It's kind of like an active checking account, and if you wanted to more secure your assets in different ways, then there are definitely ways to do that with hardware wallets and things. But it's kind of like the buying and selling process. Once you get a piece of land or a piece of art or an NFT that you really like and you want to keep for a long term, you can definitely secure it much better than keeping it in your MetaMask. But for the average person who's just getting started, I think that's a great way to learn the ropes, get some transactions, understand how transactions are going back and forth, and understand how tokens are in your wallet and leaving your wallet and then in somebody else's wallet. So seeing all of that happen on Etherscan and online is a really knowledgeable way to get started and to understand everything before you start looking into more secure ways.
Rock on. This sounds great. I'm sorry I missed a little bit and I had a little dropout, but let's jump right into the next step if we can, which is more definitely more focused right on the heart of DeFi. So DeFi, if I'm understanding from what you guys have said, is decentralized finance. It's based on blockchain. It uses smart contracts, which are essentially little pieces of code that have certain conditions, and when those conditions are met, then a certain thing happens, or some money gets sent or something. And why the farming analogy, Jonas?
That's a great question. One of the most amazing things about DeFi is that, as I mentioned before, we're doing away with the notion of there being a central corporation that is in charge, but still something has to be in charge. Some we have to make decisions about this platform somehow, about risks and rewards. How much does interest cost? What assets does it accept? All those kinds of things. And it turns out that in DeFi, those decisions are up to the community of users who use the platform on many of these tools. And that concept of putting the community in charge of decision making is kind of rooted in the traditional values of a cooperative, where the owners are the users and the users are the builders. So you kind of put all three of those groups together. You have one person who can help build the protocol or make changes to it. That same person might use that protocol, and that same person might generate returns for themselves by using it. So the owners or the builders or the users. This is an ethos that's at the heart of DeFi these days, and the method of like relating all three of those things together is through the token that represents that DeFi project. So we call those things governance tokens. And a governance token means you have a voice, you have a say in the future of that platform. So if we want to talk about Uniswap, for example, Uniswap has a governance token, which is called the Uni, UNI, right? And if you hold some Uni tokens, then you get to participate in decision making about how Uniswap changes. You get to participate. You can make proposals using your tokens. You can vote on other people's proposals using your tokens. And at the end of the day, if the community votes for something to change, that automatically happens through the smart contracts that are in place.
And
right?
Just a question.
So,
go ahead.
yeah.
Go ahead. Sorry. Go ahead.
No, go right ahead.
I just wanted to ask, DeFi, and we hear a lot that, there's a decentralized and DAO, and there's decentralized decision making and things like that. But if we let's say dive deeper into Uniswap, for example, and we look at what kind of decisions actually are being made by the community and so-called holders of the Uni token, do you think there are enough of serious and transformative decisions for the company which are being made by the community to truly call it decentralized authority and the DAO concept? Or do you think that this is more of a kind of a start and proof of concept, and that so far there are no real kind of like big decisions regarding the company future being made by the community?
Yeah, Artur, that's a great question. I think that Uniswap is an example it's an early example of where DAOs can go. To your point, there are a limited number of decisions that community members in Uniswap can make. Things like changing the interest rate that they might want to charge, or changing the exchange rate that they might want to charge for a transaction. There are as you point out, very limited numbers of dials that community has, and so I wouldn't call it I wouldn't say that it is an example of where DAOs are going. I think it's an example of where DAOs basically started from. I think that there are going to be much more ambitious DAO projects that give the community far more leverage in making decisions about where the DAO should go.
Mm-hmm.
I personally am a part of one. Our Staker DAO project has a governance token that will begin to be distributed to its community in the not too distant future. And Staker DAO is a project that has a lot of flexibility across several different blockchains. And so our hope is that our community will really have a lot of say in what the direction of that platform is and could make major changes to it. Even more interesting, I think, and probably close to your heart, Arthur, is that we would love to see these virtual worlds turn into DAOs someday,
Mm-hmm.
right? We would love to see a DAO, govern elements of Somnium or elements of crypto voxels or whatever it is someday, or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
wherever we go in that space. But it will require some really interesting evolution of how governance works in order for that to happen.
Yeah, I think
Well-
I agree with you. I'm a DAO realist. I'm not a pessimist, and I'm definitely not a full-fledged optimist in terms of, I just see that realistically it will take some technological progress in terms of the protocols, and also if we talk about virtual worlds, some advances, and also in mindset of people. So what I'm seeing as the future of let's say company like Somnium, right, is that eventually, and this eventually is the critical word, because it could be up to 15 years, for example, but eventually we want to decentralize as many parts of the company as possible, and the reason for that is not that glorious thing of let's give power to all the people and things like that, but the main reason is to actually be as decentralized as possible, so that no entity in the world can take us down, including us, right? So that it lives its own life. Right now, no virtual world, no entity is truly decentralized. It just doesn't exist because of the technical limitations, because of the protocols themselves. But I do see that in the future. And also, on the other hand, DAO is a very it's a very beautiful concept. But when you look, and this is just my opinion, by the way, but if you look at the reality behind many projects, there are some teams, and most of the time there is a huge need for someone to lead the way for a project to succeed, right? So if you just give all the power to people, I don't think that project will move somewhere as efficiently and as fast and and with that such a strong vision as if the team would be leading the way, plus listening to the community, right? So there has to be balance, in my opinion, and I do meet a lot of DAO maximalists, and of course I'm as I said, I'm a realist in this respect. So if I see Somnium, I do want Somnium to become decentralized one day, but I know that day is not in the near future. I don't think it's even in the mid future. So it's step by step, right? It's a process.
Well, I think a lot of these DeFi contracts are about code, and about code is law. So there's a distinct difference between the management of a company and decision making compared to processes. And you can decentralize and code
True.
processes that are going on. So I think that Uniswap has basically decentralized the process of trading a token with a smart contract, just like OpenSea has decentralized the process of us, trading NFTs back and forth. So creating that is one thing, and then a lot of people create one product and go on Shark Tank and think they have a whole company. So this person created the Uniswap smart contract, but is that worthy of an entire company and a governance token and all of those things? I definitely tend to agree with that. So I think that it's a journey from DeFi from CeFi to DeFi, It's a journey starting with all the things that we can definitely put into code and the smart contracts that we know work and that we use back and forth. But the centralized part continues to be the governance and the decision making and the bugs and the user interfaces and things like that need to keep growing the business.
All right. This is totally awesome. I want to be cognizant of our time. So if anyone has an upcoming appointment, please let us know. Also, I've had a question in conversation. Isn't DeFi basically like the too good to be true, the ICO, initial coin offering of 2021? Jonas?
I would say,
sure,
I would say that there's two elements here to think about. One is that a lot of the core underlying functionality that DeFi offers is essentially just cutting out the middlemen of centralized finance.
Yep.
And that functionality will definitely exist and will become, I think in a decade, most banks will exist in DeFi models because I think that it is ultimately going to be a more efficient way for finance to exist. So I definitely think it is not like a pyramid scheme or something like that. I think a lot of DeFi concepts are going to mature into really the mainstream way that finance happens over the next decade or two. However, back to your original question about farming, there are a lot of schemes that are ongoing now to get people to do it. And farming these governance tokens, as you mentioned, is one incentive model to get more people to jump into DeFi. They can generate a return on these governance tokens themselves, besides generating a return from actually the lending of their underlying core asset. I think the farming of governance tokens is something that is a temporal activity in the path of DeFi. It's important for the governance tokens to get distributed to community members so community members can start having a say, as we talked about, but it can't go on forever. It's something that ultimately will have to become, a stable process, and the ultimate returns associated with DeFi are going to have to be based on real world types of returns, not based on imaginary forever high interest rates because of these DeFi tokens.
Right on. Thank you for that. Chris, do you want to touch on security for a moment? I mean, I'm sure anyone who's been in crypto for a while has had a couple of experiences that show you that being in crypto is not the same as using an online bank, as I'd recently found out. So maybe you could talk a bit about security and keys, if you would, Chris.
Yeah, sure. Ethereum is incredibly secure, but some of the DeFi is the process of interacting with protocols that humans have created on top of Ethereum. So that's something that you have to be careful about. The news will probably spread quickly if it's money that's feeding a scam wallet, but once it's set up and approved by the audience and trustworthy, then yeah, it's definitely secure. It's better to hold your own keys on Ethereum. So sometimes you have to send Ethereum to a smart contract in order to collect the yield farming, which means you have to make sure that they have actually made money and that they have money to distribute. So whether it's a smart contract or not, whether it's code or whether it's a person that's executing it manually, you still have to make money on the other end with whatever you are doing. Someone's collecting the money or a smart contract is creating the money for that reason. So I like to own Ethereum. I like to own my own tokens. I don't really like the idea of collateralizing my NFTs because I have to send my NFT to a smart contract in order to get it collateralized, which means that somebody else has to own it and somebody else has to pay me interest on it. So I'm not too into that. I like to hold my own keys.
That is good advice, and we've all heard it, and it can definitely bite you if you do, and it can bite you if you don't. So it's really pays to be educated. Can you talk about how access to new projects like your own, the StakerDAO thing works, Jonas? How do people jump in and actually participate in these things?
It's like Chris said at the beginning, which is some people want to use the products because it's going to provide value for them, and then some people want to join the communities and be part of the governance process. And StakerDAO offers kind of both of those options. So let me just give a quick example. One of the products that StakerDAO launched is for the Tezos ecosystem. So, for example, we have a set of smart contracts that run on Tezos, which is a different blockchain like Ethereum, but smaller. And on that blockchain, people can transfer their Tez, a version of their Tez from that blockchain over to Ethereum. It's what's called a wrapped Tez or a wrapped Tezos. And by doing that, they can use our product to move their Tez over to Ethereum, and then they can take their Ethereum-based Tez and they can use it in many of these DeFi services, the DEXs and the lending platforms and so forth. And they can do that while still having a home for that product over on Tezos. You don't have to be part of our community or our DAO in order to do that. There's a reason why you would do that, and then provides actual value to you as a Tezos holder. But you can also take additional steps beyond that to receive governance tokens from StakerDAO. And by doing that, then you can also then become part of the governance model and help make the platform better. So really, it's up to the individual users, and there's ways to get started without having to go really deep in any one particular project.
Great stuff. Yeah, I mean, we are coming close. We're actually a little bit over on our time, so I just want to be cognizant of that, everybody. If anyone does have something coming up, please let me know, because we do have a couple more questions, and then maybe talk to the audience if anyone's got some thoughts.
If anyone on the live stream has a question, you can post it below the live stream tweet, and we will read it and definitely answer it, hopefully.
Yeah, Wilson, come on. What's you're a crypto guy. Tell us your burning DeFi question.
I don't really have any burning questions. I've tried DeFi as much as possible. You have to be in it to actually learn. And obviously, my biggest one is obviously Ethereum transfer costs and all these things in the background cost a lot of money. And I'm looking at other chains just to see if we can cut the cost down slightly on transfers and other points. But any of you got a favourite chain that you believe in more than any else? Anything else?
Sounds like Jonas might want to say Tezos right here.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, the reason why we started StakerDAO was because we saw all these cool projects emerging on Ethereum, and we were wondering how are all these other layer 1 networks going to be able to participate. And so StakerDAO itself is building on a bunch of chains. We're building on Tezos. We're also building on another chain called Algorand. We're also launching a project on another chain called Polkadot. In all of those cases, we're building assets that will provide value on those chains to those users, and also giving them a way to bridge those assets over to Ethereum so they can participate in what's going on over here as well.
Nice. So I come from the online marketing space, talking about digital products and ebooks and this kind of thing. How can a person like Gindi here, how can a person get into DeFi and make, let's say, an extra $100 a month? Is there an upfront cost? Do you have to have a thing to make some money with this, or is it possible to just bootstrap yourself?
I mean, kind of one of the most basic, safest things to do in DeFi is, let's say you have, many people have a savings account at a bank where they have their dollars sitting there, and they may or may not be earning any interest. Banks used to pay decent interest, as we know, but now they don't. There are online banks that are in this DeFi space that have, I would say, a very low risk associated with them. But if instead of having your US dollars or whatever your currency is in your local bank, you instead could have your virtual US dollar, your USDC, for example, or your DAI in one of these DeFi banks, and they're paying 6 to 10% interest rate right now.
Whoa, wait, stop. So if I'm understanding you correctly, I just want to get the steps here. I can take my US dollars, transfer them to DAI to DAI. This is through an exchange or through a wallet, and then invest that in a DeFi based bank, which will pay me 7% interest.
I mean, there are definitely a number of these platforms that are currently paying 7 or 8% interest, and the reason why they're paying so high is because there's a real liquidity crunch in DeFi. People want to borrow those stable coins, as they're called, so they can use them in more exotic platforms. But when they borrow the stable coins, they're always providing some other collateral that is worth more than the stable coins that are borrowing. So it's really a pretty low, very low risk model for the lender of the DAI or the lender of the USDC.
Right, by the way,
And yeah, we are seeing
Sure.
people getting that kind of return.
yeah, just one reminder for our live stream viewers: nothing here has to be deemed as a financial advice, all right? I'm just
Yes.
reminding.
Yeah.
Dear
For your information.
YouTube overlords, I just want to remind you that nothing here is financial advice. And with all the seriousness, I would say that yes, those interest rates are great, and in I don't know, in the majority cases, you know, the reasons for them, it's exactly as Jonas said, but I also would remind that there are some risks involved because there might be some protocols which are not as well written or safe as they seem to be, and there were some numbers of cases where, you know, things went not as planned. But overall, I agree, it's an amazing, cutting the middleman is an amazing thing,
In some cases, it's just replacing the middleman, though, with a new middleman.
right,
I mean,
but
there's,
automated
so there's
one, right? It's the middleman
Yeah,
which
sometimes.
cannot be controlled and which cannot which cannot become greedy or I don't know, whatever. Or
But the places that we're talking about are fully centralized and holding those funds themselves to
Okay.
offer returns. There are centralized companies like Coinbase is offering returns too.
Yeah.
5, 6, 7%. So I mean, you have to send your money over to Coinbase, which is just a new bank instead of the
True.
old bank. So you're sending all your money there, whether it's your crypto or your real US dollars, and now you have to trust them. And the whole point of Bitcoin and Ethereum in the first place is to hold your own keys and to bring the Ethereum into your wallet and to own. And even if you're transferring, like Jonas said, USD, so the bridge is from regular USD to the USDC, so you don't actually have to expose yourself to the volatility of cryptocurrency, but you're in the token and you own it in your own wallet. The problem is when you take that DAI or you take that USDC and you send it to the exchange, now you're back in just a new bank. You took your money out of your bank,
Right.
you put it into a crypto, and you put it into a USD coin, and you put it back into a different bank, and which is a new bank, and it's not as regulated as the old banks that are much more regulated and much safer to hold your money in. So I would argue that some of those things are very difficult, very, very centralized. Celsius is a new one. They have a Cell token. They'll pay you huge, huge interest rates, over 20% right now, because what you do is you take your Ethereum, you give it to them. Again, you give it to them into their wallet. They hold your Ethereum, and they promise to give you returns, and they'll give you 20% returns if you accept their Cell token instead of accepting Ethereum returns. So now you have a token that they created out of thin air to give out as an interest rate, considerably higher return because of the trading that's going on in Uniswap and creating that market price. So some of these things can sound, so I know some of your questions here were about holding your own keys. And in this case, you're absolutely not holding your own keys. You're giving away your keys to somebody else. You're giving away the money that you have, the collateral that you have, the money that you have to somebody else so that they can capitalize on it and give you a piece of the interest rate that they're making.
So is there a way? So I'm full disclosure here. I lost a good chunk of crypto when the largest exchange in Canada imploded into a crazy Ponzi fake my own death exit scheme. So luckily Bitcoin was down and I bought back in. But the point is I didn't have my keys, so I lost it because it was all on a centralized exchange. So is there a way, either Jonas or Chris, to keep my keys and still make some interest?
Go ahead, Jonas. I was just talking for a bit.
I don't think so. To Chris's point, certainly, Coinbase, as he mentioned, pays interest rates on stablecoin lending, and they are like a bank. Obviously, they are a centralized institution that custodies your tokens. with people behind it. Something more decentralized is like compound finance or other platforms like that, which do the same thing, but they do it with smart contracts. However, you still are putting your tokens into those smart contracts, and you are no longer holding the keys of your tokens. You're holding, rights to your tokens, so it has similar risks as well. I think the only way, the way to get rich in crypto and keeping your keys in your own wallet is just buy assets and hold them for a long time, because this whole space is going to be way more valuable, 5 or 10 years from now as it is today. At least
Hey there.
today.
Come on up.
So I think that sometimes we're overthinking the term decentralized finance, because when you create an economy in this platform, you have decentralized finance. You have an entire economy that's...
We're on the web version. Come join us.
Oh.
Sorry, I got
okay.
somebody joining me in VR here, and I just sent them to the website. So hopefully he'll be there in a second.
So you have to give your keys away when you want interest rates, or when you want a loan or something like that. But you don't have to give your keys away to earn money on a land parcel token. Or so the ERC 721 tokens are much different than the ERC 20 tokens. When you have the asset tokens, there's definitely more versions and formulas to create that allow people to create revenue like this. You're streaming this, and you can make money, Sasha, by having enough views and all of that, and somebody else can bring in their NFT crypto art and make money on it that way too. So in my opinion, those are even though they're not DAOs, they're not specific smart contracts that are changing loans into smart contracts, but it is an economy, and it is decentralized finance, because you're using decentralized protocols to get the job done.
Right. So I think that's an important thing that Chris mentions there, which is to not be locked into DeFi is as we've been sort of sold it, but to open up your mind to all the different creative ways. So we have, for example, here in Somnium, we have one user who is he built physical sets for festivals, and there was no more festivals because of COVID. So he started building them here. And because Burning Man went online and la-di-da, he ended up renting some places, starting a crypto art business. He's now self-sufficient, and that's all DeFi, right? Like, he's all doing it crypto, decentralized from his house. He's an amazing artist, and he's driven. And so he's created an income stream, and actually I would say probably replaced his income stream right here in VR and
yeah,
crypto.
that's amazing. I mean, Arthur was mentioning that there's a lot of centralization, and there's a lot of centralization, but it's a mixture, and it's kind of like, how decentralized are you? How close have you tipped the scale? And how much have you done yourself, and how much do we rely on you to be here tomorrow? That Uniswap protocol, if we wouldn't even notice if the CEO disappeared for a while, because we'll all keep trading on Uniswap because it's a smart contract. The more the owner has to be involved on a continuous basis, the more it becomes centralized. So some of these things, even though they seem, saying DeFi, it's just so definitive. We are a decentralized finance company. It's so definitive that it's almost always wrong, because there's always a little bit of centralization there. So it's a matter of how much are you willing to accept when you're investing in that company. If you know the person well and you want to invest in them, that's great. That's the trust that you have. But if you don't know them well and you want to invest in their smart contract, then you read their contract instead of listening to them talk about, how the contract operates and everything. You can simply read the code. That's the whole point of the smart contract. I'll lay it out in front of you, and you don't have to believe anything I say. You just read my code that says it's going to, trade these things back and forth, or do what a DAO is supposed to do.
Sure. Right on. And the same thing applies, obviously, to us sitting here in Somnium, right? We all have great property that we own in this world, and people are spending hours and hours building cool stuff in here. But it all comes down to whether or not the company survives,
Absolutely.
And, until Somnium is able to decentralize itself sufficiently so that Arthur doesn't have to be here and his engineering team doesn't have to be here, it's still a centralized platform, just like Coinbase.
Exactly. So it's a matter of how much centralization are you willing to accept in the projects that you invest in, because there's always a little bit of centralization. Sometimes it's a lot, and sometimes it's a little. So it's our individual choices. For us to sit here and give advice, to newbies and say, where is the fully decentralized company It's just there's not really an answer to that. I don't think right now.
I think common sense has to always be present in any decision you make. So just throw FOMO away, throw any maximalist thoughts away, and then keep the realistic common sense thoughts. Right? If you talk about Somnium, the first decision which has been made and the biggest one. Is how do we decentralize economy, right? And how do we give people power to trade and exchange and truly own verifiable assets between each other? And that is a very important step. But again, it's not a fully done step in terms of full decentralization, but it's a very important step towards the full decentralization of economy. Now, there are many more steps, right? We can talk about decentralizing servers, which is a very, very, very complicated topic, and the tech is not here if we talk about blockchain, for example. But there are many steps involved, and I think if you look at 99% or 99.9, I think even 100, I can even say 100% of NFT projects right now, there is probably not a single fully decentralized project which exists, even if we count some projects where the actual data are fully on chain, there is still some certain level of centralization happening, whether it's some sort of founding team, whether it's a website which is visualizing you the data. Some sort of centralization is always happening, but that is fine. I mean, that is not the point, right? So again, common sense, open your mind and dive in.
Yeah, I can see banks creating some Uniswap protocols. It's just like a website. When websites first came out and a website was first to market, pets.com, but then right after that, the big companies that have a lot of money started mimicking those websites too. So these smart contracts are going to be able to be recreated, rewritten, and used by big banks as well, and they're going to adjust the blockchain from websites to blockchain. That's just the way it's going to happen. I mean, it's going to be a slow process from centralization to decentralization, but it'll get there, especially with the processes at first. Decision making and voting is probably the most difficult thing to try to automate and turn into code. So I would, I'm not a big governance token type of person, but otherwise I do like a lot of those DeFi projects.
Cool. Do we still hear everyone?
I wasn't sure if everyone can hear me.
We don't hear you, by the way, just in case you're trying to say something. Probably turn on your microphone. All right, so it seems like Jonas has some technical difficulty, but
yeah, no.
All right, he's gone. The Matrix decided to, or the internet provider on their side. It's also possible. You see, centralization. Where is the Starlink when we need it so much? Yeah, so it was. Oh, they're coming back. Oh, there are several people coming back. Cool. Let's wait for them. I want to say the round table, but now I see it's not a round table actually. Ah. Hey, Jonas.
Yes.
Yeah, we can hear you now. We can see you and hear you.
Likewise.
Cool. So, yeah.
Yours, well.
All right. Yeah. Here they are. Wait, one. Wilson, you're echoing, I think. No,
All right.
It's good now. Yeah. So, if there are any more questions, Sasha, then go ahead. No, nothing from my side. It was a great discussion. We don't hear you, Sasha.
Guys, I think we need to do a DeFi conference in here someday. We'll get.
We totally should.
Yeah, ongoing.
It's like we can hold up to 100 people in one instance. with voice and videos like this. So there's a lot of people. And you can actually run a presentation. You can put a web browser there and just click through the presentation here. So it's possible, but we're even trying to improve it so that there is easier to drag and drop presentations into Somnium Web.
Yeah.
Cool.
Very cool. Well, thanks guys for inviting me. It's fun to hang out with y'all, and I'm sure we'll do some more of it.
Thank you for coming. Thank
Yeah,
you
it's very
everyone
cool.
for
Thank you, too.
watching, and that was fun. Thank you, Sasha, for organizing and putting it together. And until the next time, as we always say, see you on the other side of the monitor, everyone. Goodbye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.